everybody, welcome back to another video. I've been struggling quite a lot lately with motivation and I guess you could say it's burnout, I suppose. I don't know if it's just the weather or my health issues. I don't know what it is, but I've really been struggling to find the motivation to paint at the moment. So I have been working a little bit here and there, but not really every single day. A few months ago, well, let's say maybe 12 months ago, I was in the studio 4 or 5 days a week painting every day. Now, if I compare that to now, I am lucky if I get into the studio once and I feel motivated to paint. So I have been working on this collection of artworks. They're sort of inspired by the environment that's around me at the moment. In Melbourne, in Australia, we're coming out of winter and into spring, and so there is like wattle everywhere. So if you're overseas, if you're not in Australia, wattle is also known as acacia. It's a native to Australia and it's everywhere. It's beautiful yellow flowers. They're like little pom-pom sort of type of flowers, and they're just bright yellow and they're beautiful. At the moment, they are everywhere. And in Australia, this is really the start of spring. And so as soon as you start to see wattle appear, you know that spring is coming and the weather is going to start warming up. Even though at the moment it's actually still quite dreary, there's been a lot of rain, the weather is warming up. So I took some photos of wattle in the area a few weeks ago, and I have slowly been working through creating a little mini collection of artworks. And I've been creating these over the last probably 2 weeks, and because of these paintings, I am slowly starting to find my motivation again. I don't know if it was because it was winter time and I just didn't feel motivated. I mean, I know I'm waffling a little bit here, but my studio is very cold in winter and I really just don't have the motivation to be in there on cold days. And I just don't feel inspired. But now, ever since this wattle has come out and I've taken these photos and I've seen it everywhere, I'm starting to feel inspired again. And I think it's perfectly normal to have periods as an artist where you just don't want to create anything. You know, it's not creativity. It's not a tap that can just be turned on and off whenever you want it. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work like that. And so sometimes I'm just not feeling inspired. I just don't want to paint. I don't have any desire, or maybe I start to create stuff but I don't really like it, or I'm not happy with it, or for whatever reason it's just not working. And so I have learned over the years to just accept that and accept that there is going to be periods in my life where I just don't feel like creating as prolifically as I know I can create. But then when I do feel inspired, I give myself the opportunity to play and experiment and to just see what happens and to just let out that creativity. And that's kind of what's happening now. So I'm happy to say that I feel like I'm slowly coming out of that funk. And I have been creating these paintings based on those photos loosely, and really exploring, making my brushwork really expressive. I don't know, I go through this period as well quite often, which I know, again, is a very common thing for artists, where I don't like anything that I'm painting. And other people will look at it and go, wow, that's amazing, I love it. But I will look at it and go, no, I don't like it. It's not what I want. It's not, for whatever reason, I just don't like it. And that can be really demotivating, and it can be really hard to sort of look at that as a growth opportunity rather than looking at it as I am, everything is terrible, I can't paint anymore, no one's going to buy my art, woe is me. Instead of falling into that trap of self-deprecation, it's always much better to just step back and accept that the artwork that you're producing is not terrible, but, you need to push through that uncomfortable feeling of not liking what you're creating in order to get over that hill and then start producing things that you are happy with. So in the last few months, I've kind of been in that little zone of not really being particularly happy with the things that I've been painting. From my own personal perspective, not that they're bad artworks, not that they were, terrible. They're just, from what I was wanting to express, it just wasn't there. So I feel like now I'm pulling out of that stage. I have a super exciting announcement to make. Next year in September, Artable is taking me to Greece. That's right, we are opening up a 10-day art retreat in Skopelos Island in the Greek islands, and I am so excited. If you have been looking at my workshops and you're angry that you're not in Australia, here is your opportunity to meet up with me and spend some time with me learning my techniques and sucking as much information out of me as you possibly can whilst enjoying the beautiful scenery of the Greek islands. So we'll be staying in a villa that has a studio. We'll be doing some day tours. Some of the meals are included. We'll be going out and about and working mostly in acrylic, gouache and watercolour. So a lot of the work will be very small, sketchbook orientated stuff, really loose and sort of capturing things in a travel journal kind of way. But I am so excited. There is a limited amount of people that can come. So if you are interested, head over to the Artable website and have a look at the information and secure your spot with a deposit. And yeah, I will see you in Greece next year. So as I was saying, at the moment, I feel like I am moving very much away from the way that I used to paint and moving into a new style and a new era. So if you look back at my work from 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5 years ago, it is very, very different to what it is now. And so sometimes that's a bit uncomfortable, like especially if you've sort of created a customer base or like a fan base on, a certain style of painting. To move away from that is scary because you have those thoughts whether, is this good? Are people still going to like it? Are people still going to want to collect my art? It's really nerve-wracking, but I feel like I need to push myself in this direction. I no longer feel attached or inspired or even really interested in painting the way that I used to paint. I feel like I need to move into an area that I feel is where I want to be. And that's, that's hard and that's challenging and scary. And yeah, all these sorts of things happen in your brain when that, you push yourself away from that. So anyway, I'm sort of trying to embrace it now. So I've sort of been painting in this more expressive and sort of, I'd say modern impressionism kind of way for the last, year, maybe 2 years. And the more I paint like this, the more I realise that I really enjoy it. And I keep trying to push myself a little bit further and a little bit further. I feel like I'm still a little bit too representational compared to where I want to be. I want to kind of fall into this more abstract but still recognisable style, which I haven't really found yet. I think I'm getting there. And this series of little landscapes based on the wattle, I feel like I'm getting closer to that. But then I do still feel as though sometimes I get too caught up in the representational side of things and trying to make it believable. I need to let go of that. I need to force myself to accept more abstraction in these artworks. But at the same time, I am still quite happy with them. If that makes sense, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling. I don't know if I really have a point at all. I just wanted to sort of explain, I guess, what's been going on in my head and I think why I feel I've been stuck and having that burnout feeling, because I do feel as though I need to push myself further in this direction and let go of the way that I used to create and the way that I used to paint, and just accept that I don't paint like that anymore. I paint like this now, and that's okay. So that's kind of where I am in my headspace at the moment. And yeah, I have really been enjoying this sort of series of paintings. Even though the weather is quite cold and wet outside and still feeling a bit miserable, I'm still really happy with being back in my studio and working on these. This has kind of brought back a bit of my enthusiasm to painting again. So this is the painting that I finished, the most recent one I was just doing in this little video. Again, this one sort of started to push a little bit too far into the impressionist realism kind of thing. I kind of went a bit far with this one, but that's what I keep having to try and stop myself from doing, which is not easy. But this is, I really love the colours and the looseness of the brush strokes. And so I now have this cute little collection together. So these are the ones that I have at the moment. And these ones are now available on my website. I have listed them all. The really large one is already sold. That's already found a home, but there's a few smaller ones that are available. So I will pop a link to my website down below. A few weeks ago, the distributor of Liquitex in Australia reached out to me and asked me if I would like to have some product samples sent to me to test out, and also if I would like to be an ambassador for Liquitex. So I was really excited by this because Liquitex is an amazing brand. And look, I mean, being an ambassador, all it means is that, you know, they'd like it if I used their products, and when I used their products, if I could let people know what I think about them. And, you know, just anytime I, you know, have happened to use some Liquitex paint in a painting, and I put it on Instagram, to just tag them, just to let people know that it's a Liquitex product. So it's nothing really too serious, but I was still really grateful. They sent me this box of paints. It included this little chart of all their different mediums, which was really interesting because I don't use a lot of mediums in my work. So it was interesting to actually see what mediums are available for acrylic paint and what they all did, and because they all have slightly different effects. So that was really helpful. And honestly, I was not expecting this kind of a gift box arrangement. When we spoke on the phone, I was expecting just some tubes of paint, but I was really excited to see that there's some brushes and there was an apron and some mediums and some paints. So this was really exciting. You know, there's nothing better than getting some happy mail full of paint in the post. So I had a conversation with the representative with Liquitex, and we talked about, you know, what I tend to use when I do use Liquitex paints, which is usually the heavy body paints. I have tried their acrylic gouache before and some soft body paints as well, but personally out of their particular range, I do prefer the heavy body, and that's just because I tend to paint with heavy body paint in general. So that's what they sent me, but they also sent me these brushes, which I hadn't used before. They felt really nice quality. Really nice big brushes. I didn't use them on this particular day because I think they're more suited for my studio work rather than stuff I was doing at home. But yeah, I got this really cool, you know, good quality apron as well. So I started digging around in this that little box, and I found some colours. They did ask me what colours, you know, I tend to use a lot of in my palette, so I did let them know a few colours that I do use. So they sent me those, but they also sent me a few other colours. Some of them are newer colours because they do release new colours quite often. And so there's a few colours in here that I hadn't used before, and so that was really good, and I'm really looking forward to sort of playing around with them and just seeing how they fit into my colour palette that I tend to use. I kept digging and I kept pulling out more and more paint. I really wasn't expecting this many products, so that was really exciting. So thank you so much, Liquitex. And they threw in like a little soft body acrylic as well. And yeah, so these are the mediums that were included that I'm going to sort of play around with. So this one was, what was it? That's right, airbrushing medium. So I was told that this one will help give the acrylic paint a bit more of a watercolour effect to it, which will be interesting. The Flow Aid as well is there just to water down the paint instead of using straight water. And then the gloss glazing medium is for like transparent washes and things like that. So yeah, I'm going to have to play around with those because, like I said, I really don't use mediums very often in my work. I mostly just use water. I'm a bit lazy. So yeah, it'd be fun to actually play around with those to see what kind of effects I can get with them. This is Luna. Luna heard me opening a box and decided that she needed to inspect the box and the contents of the package. So yeah, that was her. It's a very important job. Good job, Luna. Thank you. Appreciate it. Someone has to, be responsible for making sure that the products that come into the home are safe. So this is her doing her job. Thank you, Luna. Now, because I'm already familiar with the quality of these paints, I have used the heavy body Liquitex paints before. I know what they're like. I know they're good quality. I don't really need to test the consistency. What I'm more interested in is testing out some of the new colours that I have here that I haven't really tried before. So the first thing I do when I get some new colours to either, to add to my palette or for whatever reason, is I like to create little colour wheels of primary colours or triadic colours. So for example, I'll put together 3 colours that are considered primary colours. So there'll be like a yellow, a red and a blue. And the yellow, red and blue, anything fits into that category. So for example, for this combination, I've got Indian yellow, medium magenta and indigo as 3 primaries. However, I could just as easily use cobalt turquoise as my blue, the yellow medium azo as the yellow, and then quinacridone crimson as my red. So I always try to pick out a colour that fits into the red, the yellow and the blue category. And I'll create little colour wheels with these to see what happens when I mix them together. And then I'll use like white to tint them as well, just to sort of see what happens. And you can do this in any kind of combination, and it's really good to sort of mix and match and change things around. So for example, if I did a little colour wheel with these 3, what I could do to, see what happens is take out the quinacridone crimson, replace it with the magenta and create another colour wheel with these 3 to see what different mixes I can get by changing the red. Or I could do the same thing by changing the yellow and creating a colour wheel with these to see what happens with the mixing of the colours when I change the yellow. So doing this with your paints, it's really going to help you learn colour theory, it's going to help you learn colour mixing, it's going to help you come up with colour combinations that you may not necessarily have, stumbled upon accidentally. And it's just a really good way of spending, an hour being creative and getting into that painting mindset without having to commit to actually creating a finished artwork. So I'm going to do that with some of these, because some of these colours I haven't actually used before in the Liquitex brand. Like for example, the indigo I haven't used before, the cobalt turquoise I haven't used the quinacridone crimson either, or the Indian yellow. So I'm going to create 2 different little colour wheels. And so the first one I'm going to do is going to be, I think I'll put together the medium magenta, the Indian yellow and the indigo. And then I'll do another little colour wheel test using cobalt turquoise, yellow medium azo and the quinacridone crimson. So I'm going to do 2 little colour wheels in my sketchbook using these 2 primary combinations. So to set this up, all you need to do is have a circle. I just traced the top of a lid. And the circle needs to be divided up into 12 little wedges. Mine are incredibly wonky. That's just because everything I do is wonky. But you basically need to have 12 little wedges. And we're going to have a wedge for yellow, a wedge for blue, and a wedge for the red. Then we have one here that is blue and red combined, which makes purple. The one in the middle here is the red and the yellow combined, which makes orange. This one in the middle will be yellow and blue combined, which makes green. And then either side we have a yellow green and a blue green, a bluey purple, a reddy purple, a reddy orange, a yellowy orange. So it's basically just a really simple colour wheel with simple half and half mixes, and then a mixture with more you know, or whatever is closest on this side, just to give a bit of variety. And into these as well, I am going to be mixing a variation of this with a bit of white in it, just to tint the colour slightly so we can get a bit more of a variety. So I've got 2 of them here, so I'm going to do this one first. And this is going to be the magenta, Indian yellow and indigo, and then this will be the other one. Okay, so to start with, all I'm going to do is paint in this straight colour. So this is just the straight Indian yellow with no tint. I'm then going to add a little bit of white to tint it, just to paint in here the tinted version, just to lighten it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to fill that in here. This does not need to be neat. I am not neat with anything. Okay, so once I've done the yellow, I'm then going to work my way around to the red. So the red in this particular colour palette is the, it's not straight magenta, it is medium magenta. So this magenta actually has a bit of white in it, so it comes out very pink already. Okay, but I'm going to add a little bit more white into the mixture to tint it, the value a little bit, just so we can see what it looks like when it's tinted. I'm just going to block a little bit of that in underneath it. And then we are going to work our way around to the blue value, or the blue colour that we have in this palette, which is indigo. So I'm just going to block a bit of that in here. See, it's quite dark. And I'm going to add a little bit of white just to tint it slightly, and add the slightly tinted version just underneath it. Okay, so now we have our 3 primary colours. So what we're going to do next is we're going to jump and start mixing these colours together. So the first one I'm going to do is I'll do the magenta and the indigo to see what kind of purple we get. So for this initial mixture, it's just going to be a straight half and half. So half indigo, half magenta, and we're just going to see what colour we get. So it comes out as actually quite a nice purple. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of white to it to tint it, and I'm going to add that here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add to this mixture a little bit more of the indigo to make it a slightly more bluer version. So I'm going to take out the white first, so wash my brush, and again I'm going to do straight indigo and a little bit of the magenta, so I want it to be more of an indigo mixture. So probably about, I don't know, 1 part indigo, no, probably 2 parts indigo, 1 part magenta. Again, I'm going to mix up another version with a little bit of white in it, just to see that. And now we're going to go this way, and this time we're going to make sure there's more magenta than indigo. So for this time, it's going to be probably 2 parts of the magenta to 1 part of indigo. And we're going to pop that here. And then again, I'm going to mix in a little bit of white to change the tint of it. See what that looks like here. Okay, so you can now see that we're starting to fill in our little colour wheel. Now we're going to keep heading around this way. So the first one I'm going to do is a half and half mixture of the Indian yellow and the magenta. And we should get a really nice muted orange colour from that. Okay, so this is our orange. It's actually quite a bright orange, really. Now I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, just so we can see a tinted version. That's actually a really pretty peachy colour. So now I'm going to mix up a version that has more magenta in it. So more magenta, a little bit of the yellow. We'll pop that here. Again, we'll come in with a little bit of white. We'll see that version. Okay, and now we're going to add the version that has more yellow and less magenta. You only need to mix like little teeny tiny little amounts. You don't need to have big puddles of these mixtures. They're just little tests. So we'll add in then a little bit of white again. Just pop that under there. Okay, and we're going to keep going around and fill in the green side. Okay, so let's go half indigo, half Indian yellow. This is going to be quite a dark green, I think, because this indigo is a very dark blue. So yeah, we've got a very dark green here. Might make it a little bit thicker actually, a little bit more paint. Better. Okay, and we're going to add a bit of white to that to see the tint. And now we'll do a version with more yellow. Okay, so probably 2 parts yellow to just 1 part indigo. Oh, that's a really nice muted green. And a little bit of white into it. And then we're going to go the other way and add a bit more of the indigo into the mixture. Just a little bit of the yellow. These colours are a little bit transparent until you add white to them. Okay, so here we have our little colour wheel to show us what kind of mixtures we can get with these colours. Now, obviously, this is just, you know, a small number of the mixtures you can get. You can obviously vary these quite a lot. You know, you can obviously, you know, add more white and more blue and get quite a lot of different combinations to this. But these are the basic mixes that you can get from these colours. So you can see that, like in this, you get some really nice purples. Because this is a warm blue, I think, and this is a cool red. Anything that has a cool red in it is going to make a really nice purple, because the cool reds, like magentas, they tend to have a bit of purple in them already, so they do mix really well with either warm or cool blues. You'll get really nice purple colours. We get quite a vibrant orange as well, because this is quite a vibrant pinkish red, and the yellow is quite vibrant too. The greens are quite muted, because this indigo has a bit of grey in it, and the yellow, Indian yellow, has a bit of I'd say a bit of ochre in it maybe. We're getting some sort of dirty colours when we come to the greens, but they're really nice muted sort of greens, so they're really pretty. And yeah, these are really nice colours. So I'm going to jump over to the other palette and show you what the other ones look like. Okay, so this colour wheel is terribly wonky, but it serves its purpose. So I'm going to start again up here with the yellow. So this time we have yellow medium azo, which is a lighter yellow. It's not as orange of a yellow as what the Indian yellow is. So we'll add a little bit of white into it to add a little tinted version here as well. The red we're using is the quinacridone crimson. Now the quinacridone crimson appears to be more of a warm red compared to the magenta. It does have a little bit more orange in it. So I'm going to add a little bit of, when I add a little bit of white, you'll see that it has a bit more of a, I'd say it's still a little bit, it's probably one that's quite in between actually. It's not quite super red, but it's also a little bit warmer than the magenta, definitely. And the blue that we're using in this palette is, what was that? Cobalt turquoise. So it's definitely a lighter blue than the indigo, and it has a lot more green in it as well. So we should get some really nice mixtures out of this combination. Okay, so they're the basics. So again, I'm just going to go around and we'll do the secondary colours. Okay, so once again, the lighting is a bit dull in here, but hopefully you can kind of see the difference that we have in the colors here. So this one here, because the indigo has a lot more gray in it, in the mixture, anything that's mixed with the indigo has a slightly more grey tone. So the purples have a bit more of a grey tone and the greens have a bit more of a grey tone. Okay, the cobalt turquoise is a much fresher colour. So the greens are a lot brighter. The purples are still a bit muted, but not as muted as over here. But the greens are definitely much brighter and more vibrant. There's not a big change in the oranges because the quinacridone, what was it? Quinacridone Crimson is still cool enough that it's not making the purples too muddy, and it's also, you know, warm enough that when you add the yellow to it, you get some really bright, vibrant oranges. So over here, they're a bit more dull. And you can see that the magenta has a bit more of a purple tone to it compared to the quinacridone red. So there's a few subtle differences. And I think you would notice more of a difference with a full painting rather than these little colour wheels. But doing a little project like this, oops, just kicked the camera. Doing something like this is going to really help you understand colour and understand what happens when you mix certain colours with other colours. And just generally, it's going to really help your knowledge base and understanding of colours and mixing and, you know, warms and cools and what sort of happens. So this is a really easy and fun project that you can do in your sketchbook.